This
China.
conference will now be recorded.
My name is Tim Chan. I am the Methanol Institute's Manager for Government Relations and Business Development for the APAC and Middle East region. And I will also be today's moderator for the discussion. Moving on, we will just talk quickly about MI because this will be a webcast that will be made public at one point. So if non-members come on, we would just like to share a bit of our history. The Methanol Institute, otherwise known as MI, was established in 1989 to lobby the US Congress in support of using methanol and its derivatives for high-quality, environmentally friendly transport fuels. 29 years later, MI is recognized as the global trade association for the methanol industry. Since its inception, MI has facilitated the methanol industry's expansion to every corner of the world from our offices located in major global hubs of business in Washington, D.C., Brussels, Beijing, and Singapore. MI also operates on a tiered membership basis, and our members span 21 countries and 4 continents around the world. They range from methanol producers, technology providers, and stakeholders from peripheral industries. MI also comprises 6 committees that explore different issues pertinent to the expansion of the methanol industry. They are the Marine Fuels Committee, Product Stewardship Committee, Bootleg Alcohol Prevention Subcommittee, Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee, Global Fuel Blending Committee, and lastly, the Market Development Committee, which explores renewable and cost-efficient methods of producing methanol, as well as applications for methanol to expand the industry's market size. One of the growing applications that the MDC or Market Development Committee oversees is the application of methanol as a fuel in industrial boilers and cook stoves, which has seen an upward trend predominantly in China. A detailed study was developed by MI and Peking University's Center for Global New Energy Strategy Studies, titled Methanol, New Energy Applications in China, Boiler and Cook Stoves. The study found that there were more than 1,000 methanol-fueled boilers in China, and they were consuming over 2 million metric tons of methanol annually, while 3 million metric tons of methanol are consumed each year in cook stoves in Chinese homes, restaurants, and commercial kitchens. The growth in demand for methanol-fueled boilers and cook stoves was driven by initiatives within the Chinese government to address urgent air pollution challenges in Chinese cities, with Chinese officials banning the use of coal and diesel-fired boilers in more than 40 urban centers. Also recently, China Petroleum and Chemical Industry Federation, CPCIF, approved 2 group standards on the use of methanol as a boiler fuel. The standards are for the specification of storage and supply facilities of methanol fuel for boilers, and also the technical requirements that are needed for methanol fuel in boilers. These standards were developed and updated by the Chinese Association of Alcohol and Ether Clean Fuel and Automobiles in collaboration with MI and MI's member Methanex, as well as some other Chinese organizations. Zhao Kai, MI's chief China representative, played a key role in developing these standards. Kai was also the principal author of the report Methanol, New Energy Applications in China, Boilers and Cook Stoves. To give a bit of a background, Kai is the Academic Board Office Director at Peking University Center for Global New Energy Strategy Studies. He also serves MI in the capacity of Chief China Representative. With a vast knowledge and experience in methanol and its role in new energy applications in China, Kai is the go-to guy for methanol developments in one of the most exciting methanol markets globally, China. Kai will also be today's expert presenter on China's burgeoning methanol-fueled industrial boilers and cook stoves market. And before Kai begins, I would like to remind participants in today's discussion to think of questions for Kai, as there will be a Q&A segment at the end of Kai's presentation. You can post your questions in the chat box on the GoToMeeting browser. And without further ado, I'll now pass the time to Kai for his presentation on industrial boilers and cook stoves in China. Kai, please.
Thanks, Tim. Hello, everyone in this conference. It's a pleasure for me to talk about this emerging market of methanol as a fuel in the boiler and cook stoves market in China. As we know, methanol is a global commodity for chemical industry as well as the traditional feedstock for many chemicals like formaldehyde and acetic acid. In China, it also uses as a energy resources in the fuel and energy applications, like producing olefins, DME for LPG blending, and MTBE for gasoline blending, basically replacing petroleum products. Last year, China consumed about 70 million tons of methanol, which is a 13% increase to 2016. Olefins is the largest downstream, which accounts for 46%, and the second largest is fuel. If we consider all the fuel applications of direct fuel blending, DME, MTBE, as a whole, it accounts for 25% of the total consumption. In the fuel applications, methanol as a direct fuel in gasoline blending, boilers and cook stoves is increasing rapidly in the past few years, which should have a promising future, and I will introduce in detail later today. While applications like formaldehyde, its market share in China is decreasing now, and the application of MTBE is also facing challenges from the Chinese E10 promotion policy nationally. That is why developing new downstream is important for all of the methanol industry. Before this study, there is only very limited understanding about the methanol fuel in direct fuel category. Now, with the development and discovery of a methanol as a boiler and cook stove fuel, also explains where the missing part of the methanol consumption in China goes in the statistics. Every year from the past experience, around 7 million tons of methanol consumed in China did not have a specific downstream. So it's generally listed as a fuel or in the name of others. Now we have better understanding that the missing part of the consumption could be found in boilers and cook stoves. Now let's move on to look at the boilers first. For a methanol boiler, it's composed of a methanol storage tank, methanol supply systems like a high or day tank, and a pump, a burner, which is compatible with methanol fuel, and boiler drum, which is similar to what can be seen in diesel or natural gas boilers. An industry example can be found in a piano manufacturer in Tianjin, where methanol boiler is used for heating and drying processes in the right pictures. So large amount of the methanol fuel is stored in the underground storage tank outside the boiler room. When boiler operates, the methanol fuel is pumped into the so-called high tank or day tank. Then the methanol fuel flows into the burner by gravity through the pump and the metering. Then it gets burnt to produce steam and hot water. Now, many industries in applications for heat and steam, like food processing, pharmaceutical, and various manufacturing with power range between 1 to 20 steam ton per hour. For the boiler power unit, China uses a steam ton per hour to measure the output of the boiler, and 1 steam ton per hour is equivalent to 0.6 megawatts. The fuel used in boilers can be neat methanol or methanol blends with methanol content around 60%. Generally, a 1 steam ton boiler consumes about 110 kilograms of neat methanol per hour. Such boilers can run 24 hours per day, 7 days a week. So the actual consumption can be very, very large. From our field investigation, we estimate that there were over 1,000 such methanol boilers in China last year, consumed about 2 million tons of methanol. And this is largely due to the Chinese government's policy to ban coal in regions close to key and capital cities to prevent so-called smog weathers or so-called blue sky protecting action. And most of the region is around Beijing in the north part of China and other key cities in the south part of China. Under such strict government policy, users do not have many choices, as we can see from the table. Methanol and natural gas, which are the main choices used to replace dirty fuels like coal and diesel. In the perspective of operational cost, I made two scenarios, which are low price and high price for the methanol and natural gas. So the low price of methanol is a price we can see being found in the first half of last year. And the low price of natural gas is the price for the household purpose, which is government subsidized. And the high price natural gas, the high price are the prices observed in the last winter when coal banning policy resulted in methanol and LNG or natural gas prices reached a very high record. The other prices of the fuel are average prices in the last year. Through the calculations based on different heat values and thermal efficiency, we can get the actual fuel economics of different fuels in boilers, as we can see in the low price scenario. It's in the first and third column. Methanol OPEX is slightly higher than natural gas. Such cases can be found in some regular conditions with cases like community heating. The natural gas prices, as I said, is government subsidized. But in high price scenarios, like the second and the fourth column, methanol is much cheaper than natural gas. And this can be found in many industrial cases where a company cannot find stable natural gas supply nor the price for the long-term operation. So generally, methanol is comparable to natural gas in the boiler OPEX, given more flexibility to the end users. But considering the capex, methanol is much cheaper than natural gas, either in the form of LNG infrastructure nor the pipeline cost. In China, many companies cannot afford such infrastructure investment. If they don't use methanol, they probably need to close their business forced by the environment regulations. And this explains why methanol is developing the market so quickly in the past 2 years, as coal and diesel cannot meet the required emission standard. Methanol is an economical and realistic choice. From the emission point in this slide, as methanol does not have sulfur and gives better results on NOx and particulate matters PM emissions, other neat methanol, which is used in the Lingjing boiler, or methanol blends used by Jingjingda boiler, Both shows very good emission performances, meeting all the emission standards required by the Chinese government from the left columns, particularly meeting the latest Chinese emission standards, even in the key regions like Beijing and Shanghai. It is also reported that methanol boiler has better NOx emissions than natural gas, and it's probably due to the lower temperature in the combustion and less air intake. Now, Chinese government is also looking at methanol boiler in a positive way. For example, the Ministry of Environment Protection confirmed the emission standard of methanol boiler in the end of 2015 when methanol boiler was first introduced in Hebei province. Previously, methanol boiler is only classified as oil or gas categories in the Chinese boiler burner national standards. When updating the burner standards last year, the Boiler Burner Authority made methanol fuel involved and classified it in the liquid fuel category with requirements of original emission and designing specifications. And this standard is to be effective by the end of this year. Before this, methanol boiler needs to be first certified as oil or gas boiler, and then retrofitted to be compatible with methanol fuel. With these standards, methanol boiler is a regular product, same as natural gas and diesel, which can be certified by the local authority. However, a boiler is related to many standards. The standards above is not enough. From the fuel perspective, more work is underway as these new markets need standards to form safe practice. By using standards, methanol boiler technology can be trusted by the government in regulation and inspection perspective, and also reducing consumers' concerns on safety. Now, China Association of Alcohol and Ether Fuels and Automobiles, also called CAIFA, is leading another two group standards drafting under China Petroleum and Chemical Industry Federation, CPCIF. More than 12 companies participated in the drafting work, and they are from boiler manufacturers, fuel suppliers, storage tank producers, as well as MI and MI member Methanex. The first group standards is related to methanol fuel. It regulates the fuel into three categories, which are 50, 75, and 100% of methanol in volume, as you can see in the right table. Other specifications include heat value, ash, sulfur, chloride, nitrogen content, which can be used to expel the addition of any unregulated dirty fuels into methanol. Phase separation is required to form a stable blend, and anti-corrosion performance is also required to prevent any boiler damage. The second group standards is the storage and the supply facilities of the fuel. It regulates the safety specifications where the fuel is stored, like the total volume, safety distance between the storage tank and other buildings in the boiler site. It also allows to use speed-mounted above-ground storage tank, which is a faster way in the point of a boiler construction. For example, the total storage volume should be lower than 150 cubic meters in the general conditions and less than 20 cubic meters in the urban built-up areas. And this two numbers is given based on estimation according to the area in a potential explosion if the methanol fuel is fully evaporized. The table in the right is an example of the safety distance, which is determined based on whether or not the storage tank is either above ground or underground, and the different nature of the buildings, like schools or the high voltage electricity cables, they all have different safety distances. Besides boilers, there are also other forms of burners using methanol in China. There are furnaces and kilns in the applications of ceramic sintering, metal alloying, tobacco drying, and many other applications. According to a Chinese company, methanol used in ceramic sintering gives much better surface finish with less flaws and brighter colors on the surface due to the clean exhaust gas from methanol burning. As you can see from the photo in the right, on the ceramic bottle, it writes from a methanol-fueled kilns in China. Methanol also has better energy efficiency than natural gas, as the air intake of methanol is less than natural gas, and the air also consumes energy to be heated up. As China, is the largest manufacturing country for the world, such applications shall have a great market potential. Now let's move on to the cook stoves. Similar to other stoves for commonly used, a methanol cook stove is composed of stove and liquid storage and pumping components. It has different forms according to Chinese cooking, like stir frying and steaming. The methanol fuel is 100% methanol or methanol blends, sometimes with water, and the fuel is stored in a day tank or cylinder of small amount in kitchen, and a large amount of the fuel is stored outside the kitchen. Liquid methanol is first pumped into the stove, gets atomized and vaporized, and then ignited to produce flame. Such cook stoves are widely used in restaurants, central kitchens in China, and mainly it's cost-driven to replace LPG and natural gas. In China, the methanol fuel in cooking is usually called alcohol-based fuel, complying with two standards, which were produced by the Ministry of Agriculture back to 1997. There are millions of restaurants in China. Through our field investigation, we found methanol as a cooking fuel is in almost every city in every region of China, consuming around 5 million tons of methanol last year. From the economics study based on the heat values and thermal efficiencies of the cooking fuels, although methanol is more expensive than natural gas from the pipeline, but it's cheaper than LPG in OPEX. But the supply of natural gas is very limited to the restaurants in China. Natural gas is usually associated with very high infrastructure cost, like pipeline connection fee, which should be paid to the local natural gas supplier. As a liquid fuel, methanol has superior capex benefit and cleaner than diesel and coal, which are not allowed to be used in China. The government has different attitudes for methanol in cooking applications from region to region. Regions like Tianjin, Gansu, Shanxi, Shanxi, Guilin, and Gansu issued local policies to support methanol cooking fuel, but cities like Xiamen doesn't. This differences of the policy depends on how safely the methanol fuel is distributed, local cooking fuel supply conditions, company to government engagement, safety history, if there are any accident happened or not. Although methanol in cooking has a wide coverage in China, there are some safety risks in such applications found in our study. For example, accidents reported as a human misdrinking methanol fuel as liquor in the restaurants, fire accidents due to the unsafely installed storage tank on the rooftop of the kitchen, and lack of emission tests of unburned methanol and other pollutants like formaldehyde. That's why MI is trying to work with stakeholders in China to produce such best practices like electric control and steel cylinders for the indoor fuel storage, flame sensors, and alarm. And all this can be connected by the Internet of Things technology and remote controlled. Okay, that leads to my final slide. For more information, MI officially released an industry insight report on methanol as a industrial boilers and cook stove fuel this year. It's free downloading through our website, and you are also welcome to search more information such as MI's safety manual in multi-languages and technical bulletins from the website. So that's all my slides, and thanks for your attention. So I will turn to Tim now.
Thank you, Kai. Thank you for that insightful presentation. We will now move on to the Q&A segment. I'll just quickly go check. Has anybody any questions? Okay, I see a couple of questions down here. But before that, I have some questions of my own for Kai. If there are any more questions, please keep them coming through the chat box on the GoToMeeting browser. So to kick it off, Kai, just to understand, do you think that this growth in demand for methanol fuel boilers and cook stove is it going to be an enduring trend in China? Would it see continued growth in the long run, or are there any other or are there any threats to this growth that you can see in the near run?
Yes, I think the growth in demand is still very promising, and this trend is driven by the demand of clean fuel required by the people and the government, and also the lack of natural gas. I know a lot of methanol industry people question this market by more LNG and pipeline natural gas are now all moved into China. But the demand in China is huge, and the people's living standard is also improving, which means more and more people need in-room heating in the winter, and more consuming products to be manufactured, and more prepared food from restaurants to eat in or take away. And another issue associated with natural gas is the infrastructure. So either LNG nor pipeline of natural gas requires a very high cost and also time, which cannot be met in the short term. So that's what I believe the methanol market for these applications will not disappear in short terms.
Thanks, Kai. We have a related question from Bowen Sri. Thank you for your question. The question is, Kai, do you expect the government's ban on diesel and coal for boiler and cooking stove use to be a permanent practice? And if so, will that lead to a growth in demand from the current 2 million tons for boiler use and 5 million tons for the cook stoves? And if that is so, will there be any forecast on the incremental growth for the next couple of years?
Okay, for the government policies. So last year, Chinese government banned all the industrial boilers with capacities less than 10 steam tons per hour to be used to use coal. And now the government is banning all the coal boilers less than 35 steam tons per hour. Not coal is not being used in higher range of the boilers, so which means all of those boilers will use cleaner fuels such as natural gas, LPG, or methanol. And also, as the local economy grows, so few companies in manufacturing industry needs a fuel to power their plant. So I think this market definitely will increase. For the incremental, I think it really depends on what's the effectiveness of the government enforcement in this year and also in the coming years. I think particularly for boilers, as we know, 1 steam ton per hour can generally consume about 100 kg of neat methanol, which means a regular boiler can consume like 4 to 5 tons each day. So assuming like in China, there are more than 400,000 such boilers in this market. So I think for boilers market, generally the market potential is like 5 million tons in the next 5 years. And now we are seeing the market is only 2 million tons. And for cook stoves, as I introduced before, it almost covers in every cities in China, and also this is difficult to give you an estimation, as the local fuel suppliers usually doesn't want people to get understand of their business to avoid any inspections and taxes to their business. So generally, I only have a rough number. It's about 5 million tons at the present time. And I think this market will definitely grow, and the potential market could be expanded to 7 to 8 million tons in the next 5 years.
Thanks, Kai. Just to encourage everybody, we're still open to questions. So if you do have any, please include your questions in the chat box. And while we wait for other questions, Kai, I have some other questions of my own. We know that methanol cook stoves are being used in other parts of the world, say Nigeria, and recently India has shown some interest also. Do you think there are other potential markets where we might see similar growth or similar adoption of methanol boilers and cook stoves? Or has there been any interest from other markets to import like Chinese-made industrial methanol boilers or cook stoves?
Okay, I think the potential market is mainly in high population density countries like India and Southeast Asia and Africa countries. For examples, I have seen news that Pakistan is using methanol boilers, and you see India now is beginning to have over 500 cook stoves in one province. So I think as the population grows and more people are in the demand of a cooking fuel. So generally, I think as the population grows, such market should be found in those countries.
Thank you, Kai. Just one more question. For the lack of better expression, the Chinese fuel cell market has also been heating up in the last few years. And fuel cells are able to produce electricity and also provide heating. Do you think this might pose a threat to the methanol fuel boiler market in China?
No, they are different markets. So fuel cells are mainly for the electricity generation, and now the market is for like telecom backup power and mobilities, just such as passenger cars and commercial vehicles in the Western countries and also in China. And all these markets have a very high paying capability because the fuel cells are expensive equipment. And the electricity produced is expensive electricity, and which is not capable for boilers and cook stoves market. For those market in boilers and cook stoves, they are mainly cost driven, like in the manufacturing and also in cooking areas. So I think still the direct use of methanol as a burning fuel is much more cheaper than fuel cells. So these are two different markets.
Okay, thank you, Kai. Uh, since we don't have any more questions, I would like to thank everyone who has came on the call, and also we would like to extend our thanks to Kai again for giving us this informative presentation. Moving forward, we'll just leave our contact details down here. As mentioned at the start of the presentation, MI sits in Washington, D.C., Brussels, China, Beijing, and Singapore. And so if you need to contact us, you can look for us at the emails that are on your screen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.